What's going on, GemMintC? It's your boy Gem Mint.
And it's your girl Phie.
We're here with the Berserk Deluxe Edition Volume 5 review. Holy. So this is going to have spoilers. Obviously, this is Volume 5. And this is a really important volume. This takes place right after the eclipse. If you don't know what the eclipse is, it's basically when Berserk turns crazy.
If there's children in the room, get them out of there. Because this is, I don't know if we should even censor this. Because this, like, the whole book is, this whole one is good.
Yeah, this one is crazy. I mean, I would say that this is where it really turns into Berserk. Because the prior 4 deluxe editions are kind of like the backstory, the Golden Age arc, where you learn about how Guts met Griffith, how he met Casca, how he joined the Band of the Hawk. The last chapter in the 4th deluxe edition is when it starts going supernatural.
Right. As we're like, all right, we're going to take off now, so buckle up.
Buckle up, right? Because
buckle up.
Griffith gets rescued by Guts and Casca. He's frail. He's looking like Mr. Burns, right? And then he ends up not wanting to be... What was his whole thing, right? He didn't want to be, like, dependent upon...
Right. He didn't want to be a burden.
He didn't want to be a burden. He couldn't do anything. His tendons in his wrist and his ankles were sliced.
But, I mean, you saw how far he got that what the heck is it called? That carriage. You saw how far he got it on his own without having any control of anything.
Yeah, so he overhears Casca basically, like, he knows she's with Guts. She's kind of feeling sorry for Griffith. And he's like, man, forget this. He takes off on his carriage. He ends up in this lake. He kind of falls and... Does he stab himself?
Yeah, he tries to impale himself.
Right.
You know.
And that's when this guy shows up, right? And he lost it, right? When he was in the dungeon.
Did he lose it? I feel like he was destined for it.
And he summons the God Hand, right? So what happens is he gets encompassed in this tornado of faces and death and apostles
monsters
and demons.
Yes.
And he ends up sacrificing the Band of the Hawk.
To obtain his goals.
And that was his whole thing, man. It's not that he was ever a bad guy, but they kind of put it into perspective. Like, look, man, you've been walking over corpses to get to this kingdom your whole life, man. Whether they were your comrades or people that you killed in battle. So what's the big deal, kind of, right? So the entire Band of the Hawk gets sacrificed. They get killed. Casca gets brutally raped by Griffith as the new... Falcon of Darkness, Femto.
He is just making eyes at Griffith. Griffith's making eyes at Guts the whole time.
Guts has to watch. He's being held
by demons.
She's telling him, "Don't look at her." Man, it was a crazy scene. That's where his eye gets gouged out. His arm gets ripped off. He tries to cut it off so he can save Casca. Man, it was crazy. Guts and Casca are the only 2 survivors, except for the kid who was outside of the tornado. What is the kid's name again? Rick is the only other survivor from the Band of the Hawk. He didn't witness anything. Guts never tells him anything. But what happens is Casca loses her mind. We find her, the car's running, but no one's behind the wheel. She's scared of Guts. She doesn't remember Guts. She doesn't remember anything that happened. She's a completely different person, which
almost infantile.
Yeah.
Like in an adult's body.
Yeah,
she doesn't really speak. She makes babbling sounds.
What do we got going on here? So in this book begins the conviction arc. There's a couple of more things that happen prior to that, though, right? So Guts doesn't want to hang around this place where Casca doesn't know who he is. He is now branded by the brand of sacrifice, just like Casca, which he finds out means anytime he's out and about and it gets dark out, apostles or demons are going to try to attack him.
It just draws them to him.
And a lot of people were asking, this deluxe edition does not have the Lost Chapter, Chapter 83. I don't know what the deal is with that. It goes from 82 to 84. I know some people were asking.
Baby?
Yeah, that's the other thing. So when I was first reading this, I was like, is that Femto's baby? But actually, she gives birth to, like, this fetus, which is a fetus of Guts and her.
And then it starts this whole story with these fairies and little nymphs almost.
Yeah, before it gets into the conviction arc, we get this little story that's kind of like its own little thing. It doesn't really have ramifications much afterwards, but it's kind of like these children are going missing, and there's these evil fairies, and then we have to fight the big boss fairy, and
big boss fairy.
It ends up being the
boss moth,
the friend of one of the little girls who's trying to be captured.
Yeah, there's
right?
I think this story adds people to the group.
The fight between Guts and that fairy was crazy, though, man. She was dragging them all through the air. The artwork is crazy in this book too.
Yeah, this book was a good read.
Yeah, this is an important book. Let's see what else happens.
It really gets wild. I mean, it starts off with Casca's, brutal attack. It ends with children being attacked. So, you gotta have,
Yeah, it's almost like
Strong
these kids are running away and becoming part of this fairy, butterfly, insect race. But it's almost like Lord of the Flies. It's almost like when all the kids are running things like
kid rules.
Yeah, they have kid rules. Like when they're play fighting, they're like fighting to the death, and like they also like rape another one of the kids with their stingers, and the girl.
And they eat the body.
The girl who's thinking about like joining them was like, "Whoa, I didn't sign up for all this. This is like a little too much." So you really get to see Guts as we first saw him in the first volume. He's got his arm where he gets his bow and arrow and his cannonball. He's got his missing eye. This is basically where we see him being the Black Swordsman, like, for the first time, besides that little preview.
You can kind of understand where his drive comes from and his sort of like the reason why he is so dark. Because you don't know when you first start reading what happens to Casca, who he has feelings for, and now he's just carrying this like grudge.
Yeah, so it ends on that story arc. So even though that's the beginning of the conviction arc, we don't really get into the thick of it, because the conviction arc is where we meet Farnese,
right? And
that's where we get that crazy priest guy. So you don't get that in this. You basically get a lot of what happens after the eclipse. You get kind of what's going on with Casca, and then Guts goes off. He finds out a lot about the lore of being branded and into this whole fairy bug storyline. So, alright, so here's the front of the deluxe edition, Berserk, Volume 5 by Kentaro Miura. Here goes the spine.
I like the texture of the book.
I love it, man. It's like an unholy Bible or something, right? It's like
right. It feels like leather, but I think it's paper.
So you read it from right to left, just like the other ones. You got the front, here's Femto with some of the apostles. You can see these are volumes 13, 14, and 15 if you're collecting them by like, the original trade paperback type format. And then in volume 13 you have these chapters, right? You have some Zod with the Skull Knight outside with Ricket. That's a dope fight, right? Mm-hmm. Here's all these apostles inside. See, Casca hasn't happened to her yet. I don't think we're going to show it because...
Yes, it's kind of a lot.
So basically what's happening here is that a sacrifice is required for Griffith to become Femto. He's incubating in like a bellet type of egg, right? So that's why all the Band of the Hawk is getting killed, so that he can emerge as one of the God Hand. Yeah, so here's basically Griffith like incubating, right? As each one of these people get killed, it's kind of giving him life, right? So that's him becoming the Dark Falcon. So this is basically where Femto faces off with Guts, and that's when the attack on Casca happens. You can see kind of her getting lifted down, which is crazy. You got Void from the God Hand looking like Mars Attacks.
That's always what I think.
Skull Knight ends up coming through and saving Casca and Guts. Yeah, I mean, he cuts off Zod's arm. So this is where Guts wakes up, and he finds Casca, and he runs up on her thinking like, all right, cool, she survived. Because, they're like an item at this point. But she doesn't remember him. See, she can't even talk. So basically, Guts doesn't want to stick around. He hits it. He just runs, right? He runs all damaged and everything. Wakes up at night. His brand starts bleeding. The brand always like kind of like throbs and bleeds when it gets night and the demons start coming around. Yeah. Skull Knight puts him on game. He does come back though before he leaves for a couple years. He does come back and he gets his sword reforged. He gets his weapons for his hand, and then he goes out there. And now Guts' whole thing is to go out there and just kill demons. That's like his whole purpose. Puck comes back. Puck plays a big part from here on out, I would say. As not only like comic relief, but I don't want to skip ahead too much when we talk about Isidro and everything. I like how Guts he gets kind of crazy. So this is where we get into like the town where you have these fairies everywhere and kids are coming up missing, and they go from fairies to kind of like wasps or bees, right?
And they really get like wound up in like the craziness, they turn almost they lose their
like a
childlike faces for like insects.
It's like a bloodlust, and then this is like the head of them, and she had a pretty cool backstory too, right? I think she was abused or something, and
she paid a price. She paid a price to get her power too. She had a similar situation to Griffith, as she sacrificed her parents.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she sacrificed her parents.
So she could have this power.
So she could fly and soar. And you can see it's the conviction arc, but it's the Lost Children chapter. And I don't know how important this is moving forward in the conviction arc. I don't feel like it really plays a big role. But the action scenes with Guts fighting them is dope.
Yeah, there's a lot of action in this, and when it really gets intense, the insects look so grotesque.
Yeah. If one thing that Berserk knows how to do is be grotesque.
And it's drawn so well.
Yeah. It's funny, though. Sometimes Puck and even Isidro go from, like, a very detailed, realistic look to this cartoony look.
Right, look at this. This is very basic.
It kind of goes back and forth between that.
I mean, they are almost a little bit of, comical. So I feel like it's okay for those two characters. I don't really feel like any other characters do it except Shirky.
Yeah, see, look, they're dancing. It's like they start playing, and the little fairy kids go a little too hard. They start killing each other, like raping each other. It's crazy.
Right, yeah, they get a little too wild.
Too wild. All right, so that is the review of Berserk Deluxe Edition Volume 5.
Wild book, man. You don't have strong opinions about things because this book is gonna be a lie.
Yeah, this is definitely an adult, dark themed book. Like, you definitely need tough skin to be able to go through what they go through.
That's what I was trying to say.
But I definitely enjoy it. I mean, we already read ahead. I'm all the way caught up. Phie's almost all the way caught up. But I'm definitely happy to continue to collect these, put it up on the shelf, and always revisit them whenever we can. So let me know what you guys think about the Volume 5 in the comments down below. Make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and stay minty fresh. Peace.